Most of us walk around with a pretty solid idea of who we are. We think our moral compass points true north. Our eyes see the world exactly as it is, and our personality is set in stone. But ordinary people with the exact same confidence in their own character, have administered severe electric shocks to strangers, enthusiastically supported obvious lies, and stepped naturally into the shoes of brutal tyrants. The people who did these things didn't wake up deciding to be cruel. They acted this way because they were perfectly normal human beings. We sit back and confidently tell ourselves we would refuse. But why are we so sure when science and history repeatedly show that we would almost certainly cross that line? To understand how our minds actually work, we have to look at a few deeply uncomfortable psychology experiments. They strip away the illusion of our independence and reveal what actually drives our choices. Imagine sitting in a quiet university room. A man in a lab coat instructs you to press a button. Every time you do, a person in the next room receives an electric shock. You can't see them, but the setup implies real pain. At first, the shocks are mild. Then you hear screams through the wall. You hesitate, your hand hovering over the console. But the researcher calmly tells you, please continue. This chart compares predicted versus actual results of the Milgram experiment. Experts assumed nearly everyone would stop. Instead, a massive majority pushed the voltage to the maximum limit. That huge gap represents people begging to stop, yet paralyzed by authority, keeping pressing the button. A polite request from someone who looks like they are in charge can quietly silence deeply held moral convictions. That covers direct orders. But what happens when we remove the lab coat and replace it with a room full of your peers? This diagram shows the exact visual test used in the Asch conformity experiment. You are shown one target line on the left and 3 comparison lines on the right, and asked which ones match. The answer is incredibly obvious. But before you speak, every other person in the room intentionally chooses the wrong line. Faced with a unanimous group, many subjects abandon their own senses, pointing to the obviously incorrect line, agreeing with the room. Nobody's eyesight suddenly failed them. They knew the group was wrong. But the visceral discomfort of being the sole dissenting voice in a crowd was stronger than their desire to be correct. Coercion doesn't require threats or violence. The quiet, ambient fear of social isolation is plenty of pressure to make us abandon basic logic. If peers and authority figures exert that much pull, we have to look at the total environment. In 1971, researchers set up a simulated prison in the basement of a building right here, on the highly respected Stanford University campus. They took a group of completely normal, healthy college students and flipped a coin. Half were assigned to be prison guards, and the other half were designated as prisoners. The setup was meant to be a simple role-playing exercise, but within days, the students internalized their labels. The guards began to act with spontaneous cruelty. The prisoners quickly deteriorated into a state of deep submission and extreme emotional distress. The psychological decay happened so fast and grew so extreme that the lead researchers had to pull the plug and shut the entire study down after just 6 days. Put a person in a specific setting, hand them a uniform and title, and the environment aggressively rewrites their behavior to fit the script. Whether we are facing down a clipboard, a room full of strangers, or the walls of a basement cell, our independent identity is highly fragile under pressure. We don't conform because we lack character. We adapt because we are biological creatures, evolutionarily wired to follow structure, fit in with our tribe, and survive. That means these historical studies are incredibly useful tools. They map out the hidden architecture of human decision-making. Once you realize how susceptible your brain is to outside influence, you start noticing the subtle, invisible pressures in your own life. You catch yourself agreeing with a bad idea just to keep the peace, or matching the crowd's energy without even thinking about it. Awareness gives you a wedge. It offers a split second to pause and ask whether you actually believe what you're saying, or if you're just playing a role. And that tiny moment of friction is exactly where true independence begins.